Hi everyone, Michelle Giannato, Vice President and Patient Advocate for the nonprofit Auto-Brewery Syndrome Information and Research. In my last video, I talked about my husband being sick for over 12 months, hospitalized almost every 3 weeks for a week. And by this time, he was on oxygen 24/7. There was nothing wrong with his lungs. His oxygen dropped to 74 during the day when he was awake and 66 when he was sleeping. So he needed to be on a BiPAP with an oxygen concentrator and oxygen during the day. He also had gained over 60 pounds of swelling, and no one knew why this was happening, especially since there was nothing wrong with his lungs and we had no idea why he was gaining so much fluid. So a month after that, I was at work and I got a phone call that I needed to pick my husband up from a particular police station. It was explained to me he was under the weather. I went to the police station and learned that he was actually arrested for a DUI, which really threw me through a loop because up until this point, I never heard DUI, right? I had explained to the arresting officer, because I asked to speak to him, what happened? Like, what did I miss? Because he had just gotten out of the hospital within 24 hours earlier, so I don't know what had occurred. And I explained to the arresting officer that he's been hospitalized for the last 14 months. We have no idea what's wrong with him. I don't know where this alcohol was coming from. And when I had asked the police, what time was he arrested, it was early in the morning. And that was confusing to me because we both woke up at the same time. And I don't know how that alcohol, it was 0.238. I have no idea how that got so high so quickly, so early in the morning. And I explained to the police officer, look, he's diabetic. He has all these other issues. He's on oxygen 24/7. And the police officer said, look, I don't want to ruin your lives. You're going to have to go to court. You're going to need a lawyer. I would recommend maybe bring him to another hospital, place you've never been. I was new to the area. I wasn't sure what hospitals were around where I lived at the time. My girlfriend made a suggestion and I said, all right, fine. We got him in the car, and as we were driving to the hospital from the police station, he said, I'm really hungry. Can we eat first? I've been, and I said, all right, whatever. None of us ate. Let's all go to the diner and just have something to eat, and then we'll head to the hospital. We did that. And by the time I got to the hospital, it was late in the afternoon. We had explained to the ER doctor, listen, he just got arrested for a DUI this morning. We don't know how the alcohol got there. He had a breath alcohol of 238. And we just need to understand, what's going on. Was the meter wrong? The breath alcohol meter. Can you retest him? Can you do blood work? Whatever you could find out, because we're going to need this for a legal defense. And doctor said, sure, no problem. And he ran a battery of tests, and one of which was blood alcohol. And, we didn't get the blood draws done right away. You're waiting there for hours, and you're filling out paperwork, and you're talking to different people in the ER. So by the time they got around to us, it might have been 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night. I don't even remember what time it was. I know we didn't leave till 9 o'clock at night, but we got the blood draw. I got the blood tests. They noticed his oxygen was really low. They put him on oxygen in the ER. And when the doctor came back, he said, all right, well, we got your alcohol. It's 0.238. And I said, it's 10, 11 hours later. How could he still be with a 0.238 from early in the morning until at night, unless the police station gave him alcohol, which I don't think they did, but we went right from the police station to the diner to your hospital. There was nothing else that had occurred, and there was no alcohol in the diner, so where would this have come from? And the doctor had no idea. So I called my husband's endocrinologist and I said, this is what's going on. The endocrinologist wanted to speak to the ER doctor, so I handed him my cell phone. They spoke, and I couldn't hear what the endocrinologist was saying, but I could hear what the ER doctor was saying, which was, okay, I see where you're going with this. I understand. I got this. Okay. Handed me back the phone. They ran more blood tests. We waited another few hours for those results. And the ER doctor came back and said, look, I ran the test that your endocrinologist told me to run. There's nothing that explains why his alcohol stayed high for 10, 11 hours. It's still high, and we don't know why. And I'm literally out of options. I can't explain why his body is sustaining alcohol all day long if he's not consuming. And I was like, okay. So, we didn't know what to do. There was no point in staying, right? There's no answer that they could give us. So we got in the car, we came home, and, my husband went to bed. He had the oxygen on, and I literally ripped the house apart. I was looking for alcohol everywhere because I said to myself, I need to eliminate consumption from this equation. I ripped apart his car. I went through the garage. I went through the toilet tanks. I was opening bottles that had other beverages in it and taking sips to see, is there alcohol in here? I was doing everything I could to try to eliminate consumption as part of the equation. I couldn't find anything. So I made a couple of phone calls, and that night, literally, and I did get a call back from an attorney, a defense attorney. And I said, listen, my husband, at the time, he wasn't my husband, but we were engaged. And I said, he's been arrested for a DUI and we need help. And, he said, no problem. Make an appointment with my secretary on Monday and, we'll get this going. I'll defer the court when you have to go to court so we can build our defense. And I said, okay. And at this point, my whole, not just my world, but my husband's world, it turned upside down. We went from what's going on medically to now let's add on this legal nightmare on top. And I was at a loss for how we got here. How did we get here? So my next video is going to explain the turn of events and how we got on a better path. Stay tuned. You could look at our medical documentation, case studies at auto-brewery.org. If you are interested in making a donation, doesn't have to be large, very small, same website, auto-brewery.org. There's a donate button. There's also a book, My Breath Makes Alcohol. I'm sorry, My Gut Makes Alcohol. And you could read about the science and stories. There's real life stories in the book. And you could reach out to our website and get in touch with any one of us, and we will help you with this rarely diagnosed medical condition. Okay, thanks.